there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled People Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen demands I put my dog outside on Christmas. After that, am I the jerk for accidentally insulting my future daughter-in-law's infertility? And after that, daughter agreed to pay for half of our pool, now she's backing out. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen doesn't get to put anyone's dog outside on Christmas. You're going out there whether you like it or not, Reddit boy. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen demands I put my dog outside on Christmas. I, 22 female, have a big cane Corso, 130 pounds. Last year I left him with some trusted friends to visit my family for 2 days. I hated it and asked my parents to let me visit with him next year. They agreed. They got a dog over this summer, and I thought nothing of it. Yesterday, however, I got a call from my stepmom saying that their little 15-pound mix has bitten 3 people and is extremely and irrationally dog aggressive. They never socialized her or took her to a trainer because she's tiny and harmless. I said I can take my crate and keep Dude, my dog, there or have them switch out with theirs, but she said that she needs Dude to be outside. I got upset and said no. Their yard is well fenced in, and there is a small shed with heating out there, but I'm not a fan. It's 5 days of him in the cold, alone and outside. He's a house dog. He's never been and never will be an outside dog. There are no pet hotels or friends to turn to so close to Christmas. I tried making compromises, like keeping Dude in one room and just taking him out for walks, but she's refusing. She says it will upset their dog too much. I finally told her that if there's no way we can have Dude somewhere in the house, I can't go. Everyone is mad at me now, and my sister and cousin texted me saying I'm being overly dramatic. Dude is a protection breed, and a lot of them are actually kept in the yard as guardians. I understand that, but mine was never meant to be a backyard dog. I'd understand if it was summer and all, but I can't put him out in the dead of winter with temperatures below freezing. Am I the jerk for saying I won't go and for causing a scene? Not the jerk. She's tiny and harmless, and yet she bites people? And they want to have a house full of other people around her? That's just a disaster waiting to happen. Not the jerk. You offered several options. They clearly have never boarded a dog if they think you can find a facility now. Most places are booked for Christmas by the end of July. I'd skip it, and that's on them. OP. I called around, and only one place has availability, but they want $280 a night, which is insane. Plus, their reviews are horrible. Everything is solid booked, and they even have a list of people waiting in case of an opening. Am I the jerk for accidentally insulting my future daughter-in-law's infertility? I'm 64, and I have one son, Robert, with my late husband, James. Robert is engaged to Sarah, who is also 35. Last Sunday, Sarah and Robert came to my house for dinner. We were chatting, and I told them a story about James, who Sarah unfortunately never got to meet. While I was pregnant, James was very excited and insisted on putting together everything, cribs and changing tables, etc. Bless him, but my James was not much of a carpenter, and one day when I was putting Robert in his crib, the whole thing broke. I managed to catch Robert in time, so no harm done, thankfully. After the story, I made a joke along the lines of Sarah never having that problem if they have kids, because Robert actually is a carpenter. She burst into tears and asked me why I was being so cruel. I was taken aback and asked her what was wrong, as I certainly hadn't meant to upset her, and I was sorry if I had. She told me they discovered recently that Sarah is infertile and she would never be able to have kids even with IVF. I apologized profusely and said if I had known, I would never have made a joke about it. James and I struggled with having Robert, and we were never able to give him siblings, so I felt awful that I had hurt Sarah like that. The mood was ruined after that, and Robert and Sarah decided to leave early. On Tuesday, I ran into Robert's best friend and his wife while I was out shopping. His wife is good friends with Sarah and seemed unusually cold towards me. I asked why, and she said she hadn't known I was so rude and that I should be ashamed of mocking Sarah's infertility. It turns out that the story had been spread that I viciously insulted Sarah and insinuated she shouldn't marry Robert. The story even got back to our family, and a lot of our relatives are quite upset with me. I apologized when I made the joke, but now I'm wondering if I really did overstep that badly and insult Sarah horribly. I don't want to be a bad mother-in-law, and I get along quite well with Sarah ordinarily. Am I the jerk here? Edit. I decided to answer some questions. 1. I haven't spoken to Robert about the story spreading the way it did. I thought it was best to give them space after the dinner to process Sarah's diagnosis, but a lot of commenters are saying I should ask him about it, and I think you may be right. 2. I haven't discussed future kids with her before, as my own mother-in-law was quite cruel to myself and James, especially me, since we only had Robert. James' siblings all have quite large families, and my mother-in-law was very clear about who she blamed for our lack of kids. I decided early on in Sarah and Robert's relationship that I wouldn't ask the typical questions of when would they be having kids, but I have only met Sarah's family once, so I don't know if her own relatives pressure her the way that my mother-in-law pressured me. 3. Sarah is a very lovely woman, and we have never had a big problem together before. Many commenters have said frankly rude things about her, which wasn't my intention when posting here. I know Robert has always wanted a big family, and he wouldn't have asked Sarah to marry him if they weren't on the same page about that. So Sarah is likely going through an enormous amount of grief at the moment. Do be kind to her, please. 4. I've also decided to reach out to Sarah and ask if the two of us can talk. I think the story spreading was really a case of telephone, but I would like to clear the air. Following that, I'm going to ask the both of them over for a chat and to discuss the situation, as I don't want this to fester. I haven't decided what I'm going to do about clearing everything up with the family, but it's not my main concern. Robert and Sarah are. I would like to thank everyone for their comments, as they were mostly all lovely and kind. The situation truly upset me, and a lot of you had very good advice, so thank you all. You made a joke about your late husband's carpentry skills, not your daughter-in-law's infertility, as you were completely unaware of their situation. That Sarah has chosen to make you a villain to everyone who will listen says more about her than it does you. Not the jerk. Not the jerk. Since you had no clue your future daughter-in-law was infertile, the comment was completely innocent. Your future daughter-in-law spreading lies about you to friends and family is definitely a jerk move. Have you tried speaking to your son about this situation? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her daughter-in-law? Please let us know. Daughter agreed to pay for half of our pool, now she's backing out. Honestly, I don't even feel that this situation needs to be on Reddit, but my daughter, husband, and many of my family members are calling me a jerk, and I'm really not sure anymore. For context, 4 years ago when my daughter was 12, she desperately wanted a pool. She said that all her friends had pools, and she was the only one who didn't have one. Plus, she loved swimming. She insisted that she would use it daily in the summer. My husband and I could afford one, but as I'm sure some of you know, pools are very expensive, and neither of us really liked swimming, so we wanted my daughter to understand the cost she was asking for. We made an agreement that we would install a pool, but that once she was old enough to start working, she would pay us back for half of it. She quickly agreed. Well, flash forward to now. She's 16 and just got her first job, and now she wants to save up for a prom dress she really likes. I reminded her of our agreement about the pool, and she no longer wants to uphold her end of the agreement. I insisted, threatening to take away phone or her car privileges if she doesn't pay her father and I back. Now she won't speak to me. My husband is agreeing with her, saying that we can't have honestly expected a 12-year-old to keep her end of the agreement. For me, this isn't even about money. It's about teaching my young daughter the right morals to live life with. I don't want her to think she can just go around making deals for her benefit and then just not upholding them. Am I the jerk? You got in a verbal agreement with a 12-year-old for thousands of dollars and are now trying to enforce it? Seriously? 4 years later? The right morals to live with are that 12-year-olds cannot legally enter contracts. That's the moral. You're the jerk and just very, very misguided. You made a deal with a 12-year-old for thousands of dollars. Of course you're the jerk. As a parent of 4, there are plenty of ways to teach our kids morals that don't involve forcing a kid to pay for a pool in an agreement she made when she was still in 5th or 6th grade. Side question, if you expect her to pay for half of the pool, will she get a cut of the real estate if you ever sell the house? Having a pool increases the price of a house in real estate, so if she owns half the pool, she's entitled to part of that profit. In other words, you've already seen a return. I'm also upset about the fact that they got a pool that costs thousands of dollars and not just a $300 pool from Walmart or the equivalent. The kid's 12 and wants a pool. It might not be as cool as a built-in ground pool, but it's still a deep pool for a 12-year-old. What mom immediately goes, "Oh yes, let's excavate and build a pool," instead of going to the store and buying a pool? Not the jerk. You make a deal, you stick to it. What you're attempting to do is teach your daughter that actions have consequences and that agreements are meant to be upheld. I'm not surprised at all that everyone here is against you. Their parents failed them, and now they are rooting for you to fail your kids too. These are the same idiots that go $100,000 in debt and get a useless degree, then get mad that they're expected to actually pay it back. How did people become so entitled? Too many handout trophies and everyone is special stickers. Keep being a good parent. Don't let your kid end up like these losers who spend all day on Reddit attacking people who actually have common sense. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their daughter? Please let us know. I think if most people knew how much work was involved in maintaining a pool, they really wouldn't want one. Only company projects on company property? Sure. While in college, I had a co-op semester in a shop environment with a small company. My position was a designer with their product development team, and there were not very many tools available to make things. We were expected to produce concept prototypes out of cardstock and Elmer's glue. When our first presentation was met with disappointment since they just hired the new intern to improve the quality of deliverables, referring to me, I decided to do something about it. Over the next couple of weeks, I started bringing in my own tools from my personal shop. I had a whole menagerie of woodworking tools, automotive tools, my welder, and even a couple of 3D printers. I turned their studio area into a respectable prototyping space. The next presentation went very well when we were able to show a very fancy model paired with CAD designs and the associated 3D prints, detailed woodwork, and even bespoke metal details. Everyone was very happy, and I got to work with my own tools at my job. It was good times. Then came the reversal. The company had originally hired me as part of their expansion, and about 2 months after I had joined, roughly a month after I built their shop, the company was finally big enough to hire a single HR person. If you ever had to compete with the mental gymnastics of human resources, I'm sure you know where this is going. One evening, I was staying late to work on some personal projects. My immediate supervisor and everyone I worked with was aware that I did this. New HR lady was not. The day after, she called me in for a chat. It essentially went like this. "Why did you leave so late after clocking out last night?" "I was just working on some personal projects." "Okay. Well, you can't use the company's space for personal projects. It is against policy." "Why? It's never been a problem before." "Running a shop costs money, and if that money isn't invested into the company's projects, then it isn't a good use of company funds." Now, I know the running of a shop costs some money and power, labor, and maintenance, but I was clocked out, and the tools were basically all my own personal tools. So I said, I was clocked out and only using my own tools. The company isn't actually spending anything for me to do my own work. Regardless, while on company property, you will only work on company projects. If you want to work on personal projects, you must do it in your own shop. I considered explaining how the shop is 95% all my tools and equipment, but I only had about a month left in my co-op before heading back to classes next semester, and I was planning on taking my tools back by that time anyway. So, cue malicious compliance. I concluded the conversation with HR lady by asking for a transcription of her verdict in an email. I then waited until everyone had left from work the next day, then spent about an hour rounding up all of my tools and putting them in the back of my truck. I took them home, and the next day went into work to find my department in chaos. I was immediately called into my supervisor's office and sat down. The supervisor was a pretty chill guy, so he calmly asked why I had cleaned out my stuff. I simply showed him the email from HR lady and explained that if I can only do company projects on company property, then I will also only use my personal property for personal projects. He laughed a bit to himself under his breath, asked me to forward the email to him, and then dismissed me. For the next month, I happily glued pieces of paper together to make simple form models while the entire department fell apart. We were unable to complete promised prototypes for our biggest client, lost that client as a result, and I left the company for good shortly thereafter. If you're going to run a company, it helps to provide your employees the equipment they need to adequately do their job. Am I the jerk for telling my husband he doesn't deserve to be a father? I'm 36, female. My husband, Dennis, is 39, and we've been together for 9 years, married for 4. When we met, we were both looking to settle down and have kids, so it felt like fate that we met. We started talking seriously about having kids around 1.5 years in and started trying at 2 years. After 3 years of trying and heartache, we decided to adopt. Following a long and hard journey, we were finally able to welcome home our beautiful daughter, Sophie. My husband was a wonderful father to Sophie. He loved holding her and being with her. He would rush to her side when he heard her cries. I couldn't have wished for a better partner and father for my kids. Just after everything settled down with Sophie, we got pregnant. Both Dennis and I were elated to hear that we would be having another baby and ecstatic when we found out we were having another girl, so close in age to her sister. But I started getting worried when I heard some of Dennis' comments as I started to show more and we got closer to birth. He once even said, "I can't believe we're finally having our own baby." I questioned what he meant by this as we have Sophie already, but he brushed it off, saying I knew what he meant, but didn't say it again to me. When I gave birth, Sophie was 11 months old and had been saying, "Aim, aim, aim," whenever she stroked my belly, so we decided to call our daughter Amy. When we brought Amy home is when Dennis' behavior really started to slip and lack towards Sophie. He stopped giving her attention, documenting, or even caring about her milestones. He started actively trying to avoid interactions with Sophie. Example, if I asked him to tend to Sophie if she was making a fuss, he would go to the cot and say that he can't as he is tending to Amy. Sophie is clearly being impacted by the sudden loss of her father, so once they were in bed tonight, I asked him what's going on with him. He told me that since Amy was born, his love for Sophie has died. He then retracted and reworded, saying dimmed instead. I was horrified. I told him I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He tried to calm me down by saying that perhaps we could split them. He'll take Amy and I take Sophie. It almost felt like he was making a really crappy joke. I called him a terrible person and told him he didn't deserve to be a father. I told him that I feel betrayed and repulsed by him for using one kid as a trial for the next. He left the house and hasn't come home since. It's snowy here, and it's almost 2 a.m. and I'm getting worried. Edit. Thank you everyone for your words of support and advice. I'm yet to speak properly with Dennis as I'm still seething. I have asked him to stay with his brother until the weekend, when I will have the opportunity to go and stay with the girls at my parents' house. Until then, my friend and sister are taking turns in helping me out at home. Fortunately, or unfortunately, it's likely that divorce is in the cards. I don't see this as something that either Dennis and I or the girls would be able to live with or recover from. Not the jerk. I don't throw around the "you should divorce this guy" line flippantly, but man, in this case, you should divorce this guy. Don't force Sophie to grow up thinking this is what a father's love looks like. Don't do that to her, OP. Won't let me feed the crows from the balcony? Fine. All the birds are coming by at 8 every morning. A year in the making, but oh so beautiful. I love crows. They're my favorite animal, and just so cool and emotive. They're awesome. I started feeding the local couple that were nesting near me, and come winter, the entire flock was coming by every day. I talked with my neighbors, found an agreeable time, and gave them a few bags of things that they like as a thanks for being chill. Everything seemed like it was fine, except my one neighbor, let's call him SD for short, keeps making little comments once in a while. About 4 months in, my landlord comes into my workplace. I rent an apartment above my shop, and yells at me that the crow feeder is attracting rodents. Apparently, the mice in our building are climbing trees and then jumping a 2-meter gap onto our building, climbing to the crow feeder and eating the food in it. This seems unlikely to me. The feeder is only up for 2 hours a day, and I've never seen mice parkour. It comes out that SD complained and fibbed quite a bit in his complaint. Detail after detail keeps slipping. There's a mouse problem in the building. I've never seen one or signs of any, but then again, I've lived on farms and still store my food off the ground, keep a tidy floor, etc. The restaurant next door is complaining about the place smelling like smoke, and SD pointed him at me. Landlord is absolutely convinced it's acrobatic mice making the leap to the balcony. I mentioned to the landlord that my shop smelled like this for the years that I was in it before renting the apartment upstairs, and that I always go outside to smoke. Also that I've lived on farms and in plenty of buildings and have never seen a mouse or rat decide to ignore ground floor entrances in favor of a leap of faith. We go back and forth for a bit. I agree to stop feeding the crows and tell him that without some kind of proof, he can kick stones over anything else. I add that he is never to come into my workplace without specific and declared need again, that I would be saving the recording of our interaction, and that he has, on no uncertain terms, crossed a line by coming into my workplace and raising his voice. After work, I check my suite and shop. No gaps, no holes, no droppings, no signs of mice at all. Knock on SD's door, see what's up. He invites me in to talk. First time I've been in his suite, and suddenly everything makes sense. He has a few birds of his own, has an ashtray he's been using, and the floor is littered with birdseed. Obviously, SD doesn't want the landlord to know he has pets, that he smokes inside, and that he's probably the cause of the rodents. I give zero hoots what he has to say. He had the opportunity to talk to me person to person to find recourse that wasn't putting the target on me. I'm done. So I look up the bylaws for feeding birds, and for peace and tranquility, I called my local council to make sure I wasn't ruffling feathers and got the go-ahead. Every morning I was going out at 8 a.m. and feeding my crows about 10 meters from my front door. Now just the nesting couple again, and there are no complaints. Come October, the entire flock is coming again, and I'm having to up the food amounts. Within weeks, the local seagulls are coming by too. I could rig another feeder to keep them away, but instead, I just up the feed amount to accommodate more birds. Every morning is met with a chorus of birdsong, crow, and seagull birdsong. I personally love it. SD confronts me first. I respond by being sympathetic. Oh, I know. It was way better before someone got the landlord involved. We could agree on a time, be considerate of each other and crap. Now they gotta be fed and done before 9 a.m. and it has to be after 8 a.m. for peace and tranquility laws. Oh well. Landlord tried next. I texted back that I was feeding them on city property, ignored him until he came into my shop again, yelling again. I recorded the entirety of his rant and asked him if he knew where I was feeding the birds. He did, and then I asked him where the property he was responsible for ended. He left, and I forwarded a complaint to the property management company. Next come my other neighbors, and they get the same treatment. Yeah, it sucks. I miss feeding them at 11 too. But SD got the landlord involved, and now I have to do it on city property. And that means my only window is between 8 and 9. Sucks, man. Oh well. No one's tried to ask me to not feed them. I think they've realized that the crows mean more to me than most things. Also, the crows still chill on the balcony waiting for me in the morning, and I swear have started imitating my "Good morning, buds," if in cadence alone. Male Karen thinks it's wrong of us not to charge his things to someone else's card. Am I the jerk for the way I made my will? I'm in my late 50s and recently found out I have cancer. I have brain mets and things aren't looking too good. I'm taking care of my affair and estate planning when this happened. I'm single, I have no kids and no long-term relationships. My parents passed when I was young, and the only surviving family I have are my aunt and uncle, 2 sisters, and their kids. I'm pretty well off. I started in construction and have a very successful construction business. I'm leaving pretty much everything split between my family. I split a part of the estate to my aunt and uncle, who are both in their late 70s. They don't have any kids, and I would like to leave them something for them to live comfortably. The remaining money I've split equally between my sisters and their kids, 4 in total. My sisters are in their late 40s. Given our age difference and the early passing of our parents, our relationship was a mix of sister-brother and sister-father. I was doing a lot of things our parents would do when they were growing up. I'm very close with them. The problem my brother-in-laws had was the way I structured the money. I have the money invested in a long-standing trust fund. All 6 of them will receive $1 for every $1 they earn. This would essentially double their income. Any remaining money will be available to them after they reach 65 years of age. They also have the option to not use any money and let the investments continue till they retire. Alternatively, if they don't work, they will get no money till they are 65 years old. My nieces and nephews have either started working or are in their final year of college. My reasoning is that I want them to be self-sufficient. I don't want them to rely on this money or get lost in the sudden influx of wealth. I had a recent sit-down with the family to explain things. I didn't want to leave any bitter feelings or cause fights over money after my passing. Everyone seemed pretty accepting until I got a bunch of angry calls and messages from my brother-in-laws. Both of them were calling me a control freak, trying to tell their kids and wives how to live their lives. I'm a bit shocked. I didn't really have such an intention. Am I being a controlling jerk? Edit. To clarify, I'm leaving absolutely nothing for both brother-in-laws. Only for 8 people. 2 sisters, 4 nephews and nieces, 1 aunt, 1 uncle. Your brother-in-laws are looking to cash in on your inheritance to their wives. Looks like you've nipped their greed in the bud. Leave your will as is. Otherwise, they'll squander your money, leaving your siblings and nibblings with nothing to fall back on. So yeah, not the jerk. Karen, my ex-wife, demands I build her a chicken coop. I, 35 male, divorced my ex-wife about a year ago. We have 2 daughters together and they split time between our houses. Because of this, we still have to talk to each other on a regular basis. When we were married, we got some chickens. She wanted them, but it was a friend of mine that actually gave them to us. The original chickens have since passed, but she still has several. When we got the chickens, I built them a coop and a run. This was several years ago, and she's telling me it needs to be rebuilt. I suggested she get one from the store. She said no, none were big enough and she didn't like any. She wanted me to build one. I said heck no, I'm not doing that. She said I should because the chickens were from my friend, and if I had built it better in the first place, we wouldn't need a new one. She kept bothering me and asking for it, so I eventually gave her a price. The estimated cost of the wood, plus $30 per hour it would take, and an extra $50 for being rude. This was high because building a run and coop takes a lot of time and lumber. It was way more than one at the store would cost. She said I was being ridiculous when I sent her the number. She says we're supposed to be a team working on it, and I shouldn't force the chickens to live in an unsafe coop. I told her she could build one herself. She said she can't afford it. Now she's saying I'm neglecting the chickens and is saying she wants to redo the custody agreement. Now I'm wondering if I should just give her the coop. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Please tell me you have her saying that she wants to redo the custody agreement because of a chicken coop in writing. Not the jerk. Once your wife assumed responsibility for the chickens, they became her responsibility. I would take pictures of the current state of the chicken coop. If she actually wants to use that as an excuse to redo the custody arrangement, your lawyer should use the pictures to point out that your wife insisted on keeping the chickens and allowed their living conditions to deteriorate. You suggested an economical solution would be for your ex to buy a coop from the store. She refused. If you're paying child support, that does not include chicken support. And for that alone, she is trying to drag you back into court to try to change the custody agreement. If she's so readily willing to neglect her chickens out of spite against OP, what else is she neglecting? If the living conditions are that bad, OP could report her to animal control. Handled correctly, OP and his attorney would make his ex look like a total flake and an idiot in court. OP remains rational while X looks foolish and incompetent. If OP has not done so, he needs to start a forget you binder to thoroughly document everything to protect himself. If she's threatening to go nuclear over a chicken coop, she will do it on the other stuff as well. I don't think that she understands how divorce really works. You're the jerk. She's right in saying that you're supposed to be a team. It's really petty of you to refuse to build her a chicken coop just because you two got divorced. She's still the mother of your kids, and the least you could do is build her a chicken coop. Anytime my ex needs something, I just do it for her or buy it for her. That's what healthy co-parenting is. It causes fights when my current wife gets upset with me. She works, but I'm currently unemployed. But it's like I tell her, I'm a package deal. You knew what you were getting into when you decided to marry me. My kids and their mother will always be a priority of mine because that's called maturity. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his ex-wife? Please let us know. Tell baby mama I'll make her a chicken coop in Minecraft. I've been wanting to play forever. Entitled mother leaves baby in pram, expects worker to look after it. I worked for a couple of years at a major historic tourist attraction in London. It was good fun and I immensely enjoyed it, although things could sometimes be manic busy, and although most customers were friendly, some could be somewhat unpleasant. Same as anywhere really. It also had some things to do for kids, and while manning these, I came to learn just how entitled and irresponsible some parents can truly be. One of the features in the garden is a maze. It's not particularly for kids, although they can go in if they want, and a lot of them like it. Parents can take pushchairs in if they want, although the staff have a right to make parents leave pushchairs, strollers for Americans, outside if it gets very busy. That day was a hot summer Saturday and had been very, very busy. However, by the mid-afternoon, through flow had thinned out a bit, and I was manning the maze on my own as I had done before. I still had 3 or 4 groups coming through every minute, and I had taken the decision to ask parents to leave their push cars outside the maze. A lady, not particularly Karen-esque, but young and reeking of cheap perfume and entitlement, stalked up to me with her ticket and a baby in a pushchair. I scanned her ticket, but politely told her that she needed to leave her pushchair outside. She scoffed at me and put her pushchair in a line with all the others. Meanwhile, another group of tourists had come up, and I was busy scanning their tickets. I paid little attention to the lady as she walked past. However, as I rapidly scanned through all the new tourists, I glanced at her pushchair and realized the baby was still inside. I quickly ran into the maze, and after only a few seconds I saw the lady. She saw me and hissed angrily, and this is an approximation of the ensuing interaction. Entitled Mom. "What are you doing here? I've left my baby out there with you." Me. "I know, and you're not allowed to do that. You'll have to come out and take the baby in with you." "But can't you look after him?" My duties in the maze included scanning tickets, selling tickets, advising visitors, and managing the many groups of unruly French, German, and Spanish teenagers on language exchanges. My duties did not include looking after smelly babies. Me. "Madam, I'm here to look after the maze. I'm not here to perform babysitting services for you. I have to walk around quite a bit, and I cannot spend all my time looking after your baby. Kids, including babies, are allowed in the maze, but not pushchairs. I'm afraid you'll either have to take the baby with you or leave the maze." "It's the first break from him I've had all day," she whined. "Nonetheless, if you won't come and get your baby, who has been unattended for more than a minute now, I'm going to have to call security," I said, bringing my radio up to my mouth and hovering my finger over the send button. "Now, are you going to get your baby, or do I have to call security?" I asked. She snorted and angrily marched out of the maze and grabbed the baby, who luckily was still there. In hindsight, I should have just called security and let them deal with it, and not let the baby out of my sight, regardless of what a jerk his mother was. But all was well that ended well. She ended up taking the baby around the maze, and about 20 minutes later, she came to get the, now empty, pushchair. The look of pure hate she gave me would have alarmed the Rock, but luckily off she went, and I was not troubled by her again. You're supposed to always want customers to come back again, but there are some exceptions. She was definitely one of them. Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video. Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.